Security. Walk him out. The words cut across the 47th floor conference room with the cold precision of a locked door. Ryan Mitchell didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He simply sat beneath the white corporate lights, one weathered hand resting beside a resume no one had bothered to read twice. Derek Collins leaned back in his leather chair. You heard me. I did. Then we're finished. Ryan's gray-blue eyes stayed calm. Seems like we were finished before I walked in. For the first time, Derek's smile disappeared. Beyond the glass walls, downtown Chicago shimmered beneath a pale afternoon sky. Phones rang somewhere beyond the conference room. Dress shoes clicked over polished stone. The ventilation system whispered overhead with the sterile hum of a building where everything seemed expensive, including the right to be noticed. Ryan rose slowly. His navy suit was clean but old. The cuffs showed faint wear. His tie had been knotted that morning by 9-year-old fingers that had needed 3 attempts to get it straight. He reached for his jacket. That was when Katherine Bennett appeared at the doorway. The CEO of Bennett Aerospace Systems had been walking toward another meeting when Derek's raised voice stopped her. She knew him as efficient, ambitious, sometimes too certain of his own judgment. She knew nothing about the man standing across from him. Not yet. Problem? Katherine asked. Derek straightened immediately. Nothing I can't handle. Ryan slipped one arm into his jacket. I'm leaving. No, Derek said. Security is escorting you. Ryan looked at him. Quietly. There was no fear in that look. No humiliation either. Just the tired dignity of a man who had learned long ago that not every insult deserved an answer. Katherine noticed it. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and second chances, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Ryan Mitchell. He reached across the table for his resume. At 7:10 that morning, Ryan Mitchell stood in front of a cracked hallway mirror while his 9-year-old daughter tried to save his tie. Hold still, Dad. I am holding still. No, you're breathing. Ryan looked down at Lily. I'll try to stop. She gave him the serious expression only children could manage without realizing how funny they looked. Good. Morning light slipped through the blinds of their small Chicago apartment, painting pale stripes across the worn carpet. Coffee hissed softly in the kitchen. Somewhere outside, a garbage truck groaned down the street, followed by the impatient blast of a horn. It was an ordinary morning. Except Ryan needed this job. On the kitchen counter sat 3 envelopes he had deliberately turned face down. Electricity, insurance, rent. Lily knew nothing about the numbers inside them. That was how Ryan wanted it. For 8 months, he had stretched savings, taken temporary maintenance work, repaired neighbors' cars, and learned how many different ways a father could say, "We're fine," when fine was becoming expensive. Lily stepped back and inspected the knot. There. Ryan looked in the mirror. It leaned slightly left. Perfect. You're lying. I'm being supportive. She smiled. For a moment, Ryan saw her mother in that smile. The thought arrived quietly, as grief often did now. It no longer kicked down the door. It simply entered, sat beside him, and waited. Ryan picked up his jacket. 7 o'clock? Lily asked. He looked at her. Their rule. Dinner at 7. It had started after Claire died, when schedules collapsed and silence seemed to occupy every empty chair in the apartment. Ryan had promised Lily that whatever happened outside those walls, whenever possible, 7 o'clock belonged to them. 7 o'clock, he promised. What if they offer you $1 million? Still 7. 2 million. Maybe 7:15. Dad. 7. She hugged him. Ryan closed his eyes for half a second. He had stood in places where men prayed for sunrise. He had heard fear through radios, through smoke, through voices trying desperately not to shake. But nothing had ever made him feel more responsible than 2 small arms around his waist. Are you nervous? Lily whispered. A little. But you were a soldier. Ryan smiled. Job. Interviews are scarier. She laughed. He grabbed his resume from the table and headed toward the door. Love you, kiddo. Love you too. Ryan didn't see Lily glance toward the bedroom. He didn't see her hurry to the old wooden dresser where he kept the things he almost never touched. Photographs, dog tags, a folded flag, and 1 small black velvet box. She opened it carefully. The metal inside caught the morning light. Lily didn't understand what it represented. She only knew her father never talked about it. Once she had asked why. Ryan had answered, because brave days usually belong to more than one person. Now she slipped the box into his jacket pocket. Maybe the people at Bennett Aerospace needed to know. Maybe they needed to see what she saw every day. She returned before Ryan noticed. He kissed the top of her head and walked out. The door clicked shut. Lily stood alone in the quiet apartment and whispered toward it. Maybe they'll finally see you, Dad. She couldn't have known that before sunset they would, but not for the reason she imagined. By 9:23 a.m., Ryan Mitchell had already learned something about the 47th floor of Bennett Aerospace Systems. Everyone seemed to know where they were going, except him. He stepped from the elevator into a lobby of glass, steel, and polished marble, where sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows and turned the Chicago skyline into something almost unreal. The air smelled faintly of coffee and expensive cologne. Keyboards clicked behind the reception desk. Leather shoes struck the floor with confident little echoes. Ryan adjusted his tie. Lily's crooked knot was still there. He left it that way. Name: Ryan Mitchell. Position: Operations Response Manager. The receptionist found his appointment and pointed toward a waiting area. 6 candidates were already seated. One wore a tailored charcoal suit and scrolled through market reports on a tablet. Another spoke quietly into a phone about quarterly projections. Framed diplomas, polished watches, leather portfolios. Ryan carried a paper resume in a plain black folder. He sat. Minutes passed. Jonathan Pierce. A candidate stood. Emily Rhodes. Another disappeared through the glass doors. Ryan waited. At 10:17, Derek Collins finally emerged. Mitchell. Ryan stood and offered his hand. Good morning. Derek glanced at the hand before shaking it. His grip was quick. Administrative. Inside the interview room, Derek opened Ryan's resume and frowned almost immediately. Army. Yes. 8 years. 8 active. For reserve. Derek's finger moved down the page. And after that, maintenance supervision, logistics contracts, temporary operations work. That's right. No MBA. No. No Fortune 500 management. No. Derek leaned back. So why are you here? Ryan paused. Not because the question offended him. Because he was trying to decide whether Derek actually wanted an answer. I've managed people under pressure. This isn't the military. I know. We don't take orders here. Neither did emergencies. Derek's pen stopped. For one brief second, the room changed. Then he smiled. Not warmly. Military leadership doesn't always translate into corporate leadership, Mr. Mitchell. Ryan looked through the glass wall behind him. Employees moved between conference rooms carrying laptops and coffee, each one busy with something that seemed urgent. People are still people. Derek exhaled through his nose. You've got a significant employment gap. I was raising my daughter. Full-time. She needed me. Derek wrote something. Ryan noticed. Not the words. Just how quickly they came. Outside, 2 waiting candidates glanced through the glass. One whispered something. The other smiled. Ryan heard a faint laugh. He didn't turn. There had been a time when disrespect could tighten every muscle in his body. Those days were gone. A man learned strange things after losing enough. Sometimes strength meant advancing. Sometimes it meant standing still. And sometimes dignity was simply refusing to become smaller because someone else had decided you were. Derek closed the folder. We have applicants whose experience aligns more naturally with our culture. You haven't asked what mine means. Derek looked up. Excuse me. Ryan leaned forward slightly. You read the titles. Silence. You didn't ask what I did. 4. The first time, Derek truly looked at him. Then someone passed behind the glass. A tall woman in an ivory blazer, surrounded by 3 executives. Katherine Bennett. Ryan didn't know her face, but she slowed for half a step as she passed the interview room. Derek noticed immediately and straightened his jacket. Ryan noticed something else. The interview had lasted 11 minutes. And somehow, no one had asked him a single question about leadership. By 11:06 a.m., Ryan Mitchell was the last applicant still waiting. The others had come and gone carrying polished folders, practiced smiles, and the quiet confidence of people accustomed to being invited into rooms like this. Ryan sat alone. Almost. Across from him, a young woman named Megan Carter stared at a laptop balanced on trembling knees. Oh no. Ryan looked over. She clicked twice. No. Problem. My presentation won't open. Her breathing quickened. Around them, employees moved past without slowing. A receptionist answered a phone. An espresso machine hissed behind the glass partition. Nobody noticed the young woman beginning to unravel. Ryan stood. "May I?" Megan hesitated, then handed him the laptop. "I'm supposed to present in 6 minutes." Ryan checked the screen. "File's there." "It won't load." "Then don't use it." She stared at him. "What? You know what you're presenting?" "Yes, but then you don't need the slides." "I'll freeze." Ryan handed the laptop back. "Breathe first." She swallowed. "Speak second." 3 words. Then silence. Megan took one slow breath. Then another. Behind a tinted glass wall 20 feet away, Katherine Bennett stopped walking. She had been listening to her chief financial officer discuss a procurement meeting when something about the scene caught her attention. Not the frightened candidate. The man helping her. "Who was that?" Katherine asked. Her assistant followed her gaze. "An applicant, I think." Ryan didn't know anyone was watching. That mattered. Megan finally nodded. "Thank you. You'll be fine." "How do you know?" Ryan gave a faint smile. "I don't." She laughed despite herself. The conference room door opened. "Megan Carter?" She stood. Before leaving, she looked back at Ryan. "Wish me luck." "You don't need luck." The door closed behind her. Ryan sat again. A moment later, a nervous junior employee hurried past carrying 2 coffees and a stack of folders. His shoe caught the edge of the rug. Coffee hit the marble. Folders scattered. "Damn it." 2 executives stepped around the spill. Ryan didn't. He crouched. "Leave it, sir," the employee said quickly. "Facilities will get it." Ryan gathered the papers. Facilities didn't drop them. The young man blinked. Ryan handed him the stack, then grabbed napkins from the coffee station and wiped the floor before someone could slip. No audience. No applause. Just a small act of respect in a building obsessed with status. Behind the glass, Katherine watched him stand. Her meeting had already moved 10 feet ahead without her. "Katherine?" She didn't answer immediately. There was something familiar in Ryan's stillness. Not his face. His manner. The way he noticed frightened people before important ones. The way he helped without first asking whether helping would benefit him. At 11:19, Derek Collins emerged again. "Mitchell." Ryan stood. Derek looked irritated to find him still there. "I thought we were clear. You said you'd let me know." Derek glanced at his watch. "We're moving forward with candidates who fit the culture." Ryan nodded once. "Understood." No argument. No plea. He reached for his jacket. And from behind the glass, Katherine Bennett finally understood what had bothered her. Everyone else that morning had been trying to impress Bennett Aerospace. Ryan Mitchell was the only man in the room who had forgotten anyone was watching. Which meant, perhaps, he had shown them exactly who he was. "Mr. Mitchell, are you refusing to leave?" Derek Collins said it loudly enough for the waiting area to hear. Ryan stopped beside the conference table. "No." "Then we're done." "We were done 11 minutes ago." Derek's jaw tightened. 2 candidates outside looked toward the glass wall. Ryan hadn't meant it as an insult. That was what made it sting. Derek stepped closer. "You came here for an operations leadership position with no MBA, no corporate executive experience, and years missing from your professional record." "They weren't missing. You weren't employed. I was raising my daughter." "That's not management experience." Ryan held his gaze. "No, that's responsibility." The room went still. Outside, the city floated beneath a gray-white sky. The ventilation hummed overhead. Somewhere down the corridor, an elevator chimed. Derek closed Ryan's folder with a sharp slap. Military people always do this. Ryan's eyes narrowed slightly. "Do what?" "Assume surviving difficult circumstances qualifies them to run a corporation." "I never said that." "You implied it." "I asked you to interview me." "I did." Ryan glanced at the closed resume. "No. You categorized me." That landed harder. Derek's face reddened. Ryan had spent years learning that anger was expensive. Once released, it rarely returned without taking something with it. So he kept his voice low. "If you've already decided who I am, there's nothing left to interview." He reached for his jacket. Derek stepped toward the door. "Security." Ryan paused. A uniformed officer at the reception desk looked up. "Security," Derek repeated. "Walk him out." Several heads turned. Ryan felt the old instinct rise inside him. The one that remembered commands, humiliation, men testing other men simply because they could. He let it pass. Quiet strength was still strength. "I can find the elevator." "You heard me." "I did." Ryan slipped one arm into his jacket. At that exact moment, Katherine Bennett approached the conference room. She had seen enough from behind the glass to know something had gone wrong. Problem? She asked. Derek transformed instantly. Katherine, nothing I can't handle. Ryan gathered his resume. I'm leaving. No, Derek said. Security is escorting you. Ryan looked at him once. No threat. No surrender. Only dignity. Then he lifted his jacket from the chair. Something shifted inside the pocket. A small black box slipped free. It struck the polished floor. Click. The lid opened. Ryan froze. The security officer stopped. Derek looked down with irritation. Katherine looked down and forgot to breathe. A faded ribbon rested against black velvet. Beneath it, scratched by years rather than display, lay a military decoration. Katherine took one slow step forward. Wait. Ryan immediately crouched and closed the box. But she had seen it. More importantly, she recognized it. Mr. Mitchell. Ryan straightened. Her eyes moved from his face to the box in his hand. Where did you get that? It was given to me. Derek exhaled impatiently. He's a veteran, Katherine. We already know that. She ignored him. For what? Ryan's thumb rested against the worn edge of the box. His expression changed, not into pride, but something heavier. That isn't part of my resume. Katherine studied him. Why not? Ryan slipped the metal back into his pocket. Because the men who didn't come home can't put theirs on a resume either. No one moved. No one laughed. And for the first time that morning, Derek Collins had nothing to say. Some things don't belong in a job interview. Ryan's voice was quiet, but no one in the conference room missed a word. Katherine Bennett studied him. That metal does. No, ma'am. Derek Collins shifted impatiently beside her. Katherine, we're already behind schedule. Then we'll be further behind. Derek fell silent. Ryan picked up his folder. I should go. Katherine stepped aside rather than block him. Give me 10 minutes. For what? To understand what my hiring department didn't. Ryan's eyes moved briefly toward Derek. I didn't come here to be investigated. No. Katherine's voice softened. You came here to be interviewed. That stopped him. For the first time all morning, someone seemed to understand the difference. Ryan sat in the empty waiting area while Katherine entered her office and closed the glass door. The black velvet box felt heavier in his pocket now. He hated that. Medals were supposed to honor sacrifice. Too often, people used them to decorate survivors. Katherine opened Ryan's veteran verification record and made one phone call. Colonel James Whitaker answered on the fourth ring. Whitaker, my name is Katherine Bennett. A pause. Bennett Aerospace. Yes, I'm calling about Ryan Mitchell. Silence. Not confusion. Recognition. Whitaker's voice changed. Is Ryan all right? He's here. Another. Pause. Then why are you calling me? Katherine looked through the glass. Ryan was helping the receptionist straighten a stack of folders someone had knocked sideways. He applied for a job. Whitaker gave a quiet breath that almost sounded like a laugh. And you don't know whether he's qualified. I know he has a decoration I recognize. The line became still. Finally Whitaker said, You're asking about the medal. Yes. You should be asking why he received it. Katherine leaned back. Whitaker spoke slowly. Years earlier, during an evacuation operation overseas, Ryan's unit had been ordered out after an explosion compromised their position. The extraction route was collapsing. Ryan had reached safety. Then he heard that 3 men were missing. He went back. Katherine asked. Twice. Under orders? No. Why? Whitaker was quiet. Because they were still there. The simplicity of it struck harder than heroics ever could. No speech. No glory. Just 3 lives on the wrong side of danger. Ryan brought 2 men out himself. The third died before evacuation. Ryan never forgave himself for the one he couldn't save. Katherine stared through the glass at him. Why isn't any of this on his resume? Whitaker's answer came immediately. Because that's Ryan. Then his voice lowered. But listen carefully, Ms. Bennett. The medal tells you what he did once. Katherine waited. Outside her office, Ryan checked his watch. 5:32, 7 o'clock dinner. Whitaker continued. If you want to know what kind of man you're interviewing, don't ask what he did on the worst day of his life. A long silence. Ask what he's done every ordinary day since. The call ended. Katherine remained seated. She looked again at Ryan's resume. 8 years military. Employment gaps. Temporary work. Single father. The same words were still there. But suddenly they meant something different. The resume hadn't been empty. They had simply been reading it without respect. Mr. Mitchell. Ryan had already reached the elevator when Katherine's voice found him. He turned. She walked toward him alone this time. I owe you an interview. Ryan glanced at his watch. 5:41 p.m. I appreciate that. But I promised my daughter dinner at 7. Katherine almost smiled. Give me 20 minutes. Before Ryan could answer, a sharp electronic alarm sounded behind them. Beep, beep, beep. The lights above the operations floor shifted from white to amber. Then every monitor behind the glass flashed red. System fault. What happened? Katherine asked. A young engineer rushed from the control room. Telemetry integration just dropped. Backup. Not responding. Derek appeared from the corridor. Reset it. We tried. Then reset it again. Ryan watched without speaking. Within seconds, the polished corporate comm disappeared. Phones rang. Managers shouted across desks. 3 engineers talked at once. Kill the test. We can't. Call systems. Systems is already here. Who's in charge? No one answered. Ryan looked toward the control room. On the largest monitor, warning lines multiplied across a schematic for an unmanned aerospace guidance platform undergoing final simulation. A young technician sat frozen at the console. His name badge read Ethan Reed. I can't shut it down, Ethan whispered. Derek stepped behind him. What do you mean you can't? The commands are looping. Override them. I'm trying. Try harder. Ethan's hands began to shake. Ryan knew that look. Not incompetence. Overload. He had seen it in 19-year-old soldiers when radios screamed, smoke blocked the horizon, and everyone suddenly expected one frightened human being to solve 10 problems at once. Ryan looked at the elevator, then at his watch. 5:43, dinner at 7. The doors opened. He could leave. No one here had hired him. No one had even respected him. Then Ethan whispered again. I don't know what to do. Ryan took off his jacket. He laid it over a chair. Stop. The word wasn't loud. Yet Ethan looked up. Ryan stepped into the control room. Derek stared at him. What are you doing? Helping. You're not authorized. Then tell me to leave. Derek opened his mouth. Katherine spoke first. Let him. Ryan moved beside Ethan, but didn't touch the controls. Look at me. Ethan did. Breathe. I can't. Yes, you can. One breath. Then another. The alarms continued pulsing. Ryan pointed at the screens. Tell me what failed first. Telemetry. Before that, Ethan swallowed. The guidance simulator reported a timing mismatch. Good. Before that, a pause. Backup synchronization. Ryan nodded. There. Derek frowned. There what? You're treating 3 warnings like 3 failures. Ryan looked at Ethan. They're not. The young technician's eyes widened. 1 failure is cascading. Exactly. For the first time in 5 minutes, Ethan's hands stopped shaking. Ryan didn't know Bennett Aerospace's software. He didn't pretend to. But chaos had a language. And Ryan Mitchell had spent years learning how to listen when everyone else was shouting. Trace the first fault, he said. Ethan began typing. Katherine stood behind them, silent. 30 seconds later, Ethan froze. I found it. A synchronization module had failed, triggering false commands through every dependent system. Derek stared at the screen. Can you isolate it? Ethan nodded. I think so. Ryan corrected him quietly. Don't think. Ethan breathed. I can. Then do it. His finger moved toward the keyboard. And somewhere inside the jacket Ryan had left behind, the metal remained hidden. For once, nobody needed to see it. Isolate the module. Ethan Reed's fingers hovered over the keyboard. What if I'm wrong? Ryan stood beside him, steady as stone. Then we correct it. What if it gets worse? Then we correct that too. Ethan looked at him. Ryan nodded once. Do it. Click. The command entered the system. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the main screen flickered. 1 warning disappeared. Then another. Then 12. The amber lights overhead returned to white, and the violent chorus of alarms collapsed into a single electronic tone. Beep. Silence. No applause came. No one moved. The operations floor seemed to hold its breath. Ryan looked at Ethan. Status. The young engineer checked the diagnostics. Telemetry stable. Backup. Synchronizing. Guidance. Ethan swallowed, then smiled. Normal. Only then did Ryan step away. Behind him, Katherine Bennett stood with her arms folded, watching the man her company had nearly escorted from the building. Derek Collins. Found his voice first. That could have gone badly. Ryan picked up his jacket. It didn't. You had no authorization to intervene. I didn't touch your system. You directed an employee. I helped him think. Derek gave a humorless laugh. You think that makes you qualified to lead aerospace operations? Ryan slipped into his jacket. No. Derek blinked. Ryan looked toward Ethan. He does. The young engineer froze. Ryan continued quietly. He knew the system. He knew the failure. He just couldn't hear himself think because everyone around him was shouting. The words landed differently this time. Several managers lowered their eyes. Katherine looked at Derek. He said nothing. Ryan checked his watch. 6:02. I need to go. Katherine stepped toward him. Ryan. He stopped. She had called him Mr. Mitchell all day. Not now. I spoke with Colonel Whitaker. Something tightened behind Ryan's eyes. I wish you hadn't. I needed to understand. No. His voice remained gentle. You wanted to understand. Katherine accepted the correction. You're right. That surprised him. Power rarely apologized without defending itself first. Katherine glanced toward the control room. The metal made me stop. Ryan said nothing. But what happened here made me understand something. What? She looked at Ethan, then at the employees who had gone silent around them. You didn't take control. Ryan waited. You gave it back. For the first time, his expression softened. That's leadership. Derek shifted beside them. Katherine turned to him. This morning, you said Mr. Mitchell had no relevant leadership experience. Derek's face lost color. I said his background didn't align naturally with. Did you ask him what he had led? Silence. Did you ask what decisions he had made? Nothing. Did you ask what 12 years of military service taught him? Derek stared at the floor. No. Katherine nodded slowly. There was no anger in her face. That somehow made the moment heavier. Then we didn't reject an unqualified candidate. She looked around the room. We failed to qualify ourselves as interviewers. No one spoke. Ryan didn't smile. He didn't need Derek embarrassed. He didn't need revenge. Respect gained through another man's humiliation was only pride wearing better clothes. He picked up his folder. Katherine watched him. Where are you going? Home. We haven't finished. Ryan glanced at the clock. 6:05. My daughter is waiting for dinner. And in a building where everyone had spent the day measuring importance by titles, resumes, and authority, the most impressive man in the room walked toward the elevator because he'd made a promise to a 9-year-old girl. The metal made me look. You made me see. Katherine Bennett said the words the next morning. Ryan stood in her office, still wearing the same navy suit, though Lily had corrected his tie this time. On Katherine's desk lay a single white envelope. An offer letter. Ryan didn't reach for it. Katherine noticed. Operations Response Manager, she said. Full benefits. Better salary than the posting listed. Ryan looked through the glass toward the floor where, less than 24 hours earlier, security had been called to remove him. Because of yesterday? Because of you. She pushed the envelope closer. The metal got my attention, Ryan. It isn't why I'm hiring you. He looked at her. Then why? Katherine smiled faintly. Because when everyone else panicked, you created calm. When Ethan doubted himself, you gave him confidence. And when you had every reason to walk away. She paused. You stayed. Ryan lowered his eyes. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he asked the question Katherine hadn't expected. What time does the day end? She blinked. Excuse me. Normal hours. 5:30. Regularly? Usually. Ryan nodded. My daughter eats at 7. Katherine stared at him, then understood. Yesterday, he had walked away from an opportunity most people would have begged for because a 9-year-old girl was waiting at a dinner table. 7 stays 7, she said. Ryan finally picked up the offer. Then you have a deal. 3 months later, Bennett Aerospace changed more than Ryan's job title. Derek Collins remained with the company, but Katherine required the hiring division to rebuild how veteran applicants were evaluated. Employment gaps became conversations. Military titles became questions. Experience was no longer dismissed simply because it arrived wearing unfamiliar language. Derek himself apologized. Ryan accepted. No speech. No revenge. Just a handshake. Because redemption means little if no one is allowed a second chance. Ryan's new office was modest. 1 desk. 2 chairs. A window overlooking Chicago. There were no military photographs on the walls. No certificates. No medal. Only 1 silver frame beside his computer. Lily. One afternoon, she visited after school. She spun slowly in his chair, examining everything. Where's your medal? At home. You should put it here. Why? Because it's important. Ryan looked at his daughter. Then he smiled. It is. So why hide it? He turned the photograph toward her. I'm not hiding it. Lily frowned. Ryan crouched beside her. A medal tells people about something you did. He tapped the photograph gently. This reminds me why I do things. Lily looked at him for several seconds. Then she wrapped her arms around his neck. That evening, at 6:58, Ryan opened their apartment door. Dinner smelled faintly of tomato sauce and garlic. At exactly 7, father and daughter sat across from each other. The medal remained inside the old wooden dresser. Quiet, unseen, and perhaps that was where it belonged. Because some medals tell the world what a man did on his bravest day. But dignity is quieter than medals. Character is built on ordinary days. In promises kept when nobody is watching. In kindness offered when there is nothing to gain. In walking back into a room that rejected you because someone inside still needs help. Ryan Mitchell had spent years believing the most important part of his life was something he had survived. He was wrong. His greatest honor wasn't hanging from a ribbon. It was sitting across the dinner table, laughing with spaghetti sauce on her cheek. And this time, the world didn't need to applaud. It only needed to finally see him.